All right, y'all asked for it. Let's break some batteries.
Alright y'all, so I didn't want to take up your time by going through separate unboxings for these, and I think you'll see why in just a moment. Don't adjust your screens, these are actually two different batteries. The one on the left is from Dumfume, and the one on the right is from Idzlldi. Again, I'm not sure how you actually pronounce that. It's Idzlldi. So, yep, we're just going to go with... As you can see, they're very, very similar, down to even the writing on the outside of the box, and even the screws that come with these batteries come in the same exact packaging. At this point, I was pretty confident that these were the same batteries, but then I opened up the user manuals and noticed that every single page is exactly the same, except for right here, where they entered in their individual names. So Dumfume says, "Can I have Dumfume lithium batteries?" And then the other says, "Can I have batteries?" So again, does lead me to believe that more than likely we're looking at the same manufacturer for both of these. Now the outside, really it just has their stickers on it. There's really nothing impressive here, so I'm not going to make you sit through going over the complete outside and what they look like, because they are pretty much identical. One thing I did think was interesting though was taking a look at the actual serial numbers printed here. Even though they're printed on different labels, they have the exact same serial number except for those last 3 digits. Again, that leads me to believe that these may have come from the same factory, but I guess we'll find out once we get them opened up. Now, before we tear these batteries apart, we need to do some testing. I want to verify that they actually have the full 100 amp hours they're rated for, and that they're able to sustain a full discharge of 100 amps at that full 100 amp hours. So let's get it over to the testing rig. Now, battery testing might as well be watching paint dry, so I'm not going to make you sit through all of that, but here are the results that I got for these two batteries. One thing immediately caught me off guard. Dumfume is generally known as being a good company that has high ratings on their batteries. That's not what I was seeing though. Draining these down to the point where the BMS cut off, I was actually seeing about a 4 amp hour difference, which doesn't sound like a lot, but that's 4% of your rated battery capacity. Usually that's not something that I would want to see missing. If I pay for a full tank of gas, I don't want 4% of it missing. So I reached out to Dumfume, and here's their response. Hello. Regarding the capacity of a 12-volt 100 amp hour battery, it should be noted that although its nominal capacity is 100 amp hours, the actual operational efficiency of lithium iron phosphate batteries is influenced by multiple factors, such as inverter conversion and cable losses. Consequently, the final effective discharge efficiency cannot reach 100%. Now, for that, I've got to call bullshit. Every battery that I've tested thus far has rated higher or right at 100 amp hours when tested. I did some quick calculations on the back of a napkin and verified that my testing rig, how I currently have it set up based on the gauge of wires that I'm using and the type of shunt that I'm using, loses approximately 1.4 watts over an entire discharge of one of these batteries. That's not 4%. It's actually less than half of 1%. So that doesn't make sense to me how they're going to claim the efficiency loss here. So I tested again, and unfortunately I got the same thing, well, very close to it. The battery went up slightly, so this could simply be an issue of an imbalance in the battery, which we won't know until we get inside of it. Or it could in fact just be that these aren't the grade A cells that Dumfume was selling us. Now, on the flip side, we've got the Idzlldi battery. Now you'll see that I ran one additional test on the Idzlldi battery, and that's because I was having a little bit of trouble with the inverter that I was using as my primary load for these tests, and it wasn't able to maintain that full 100 amp draw for the full 1 hour. Because of that, I wanted to verify that my tests weren't being thrown off by either drawing too much or too little power. So I did a third test on this battery in particular, just to verify if in fact pulling the full 100 amps for that full hour would give us any different result. Now, while this battery did test a little bit higher, we're still below that 100 amp hours. And again, when we're talking about grade A cells, they are generally over provisioned by a few percent to ensure that you're able to pull that full amount regardless of the battery being brand new or just a few months old. Now, in all tests here, I did actually run these, even the ones that were run at the full 100 amps, I did run them at a lower amperage as well to try and see if I could eke any additional charge out of these batteries. And in all cases, I was unable to. At most, I got 0.1 of an amp hour additional, but it was negligible. So again, I think I really did give these a good shot at trying to meet their claimed capacities, and regrettably, neither of them did. Now that we know how they perform, let's take a look and see what we're looking at on the inside, and verify if my hypothesis is correct that these are in fact the same exact batteries. So the Dumfume was the first battery that I did get in and get taken apart. Now, this one actually caused a little bit of scare in the warehouse. You'll notice on this battery, taking a look at this positive cable, the positive cable actually comes very, very close to a negative lead that goes directly to the other end of the cells, not through the BMS. In this case, when I was trying to extract the cells from the casing, that positive lead that was attached to the top terminal of the battery touched this negative lead and almost instantly vaporized a screw head. It shot sparks and molten metal all over the warehouse and didn't seem to want to stop anytime soon, but fortunately I was able to get them apart relatively quickly, and this was the only damage that was done. Again, when you're dealing with this many amps, it can get a little bit scary. So this was less than a second of these being connected, and this M6 bolt is essentially toast. As I was getting these out of their packaging, I did notice one other thing that kind of caught me off guard a little bit. Now, the actual construction of the pack wasn't bad. They were strapped, they had cardboard or fiberboard in between each of the cells, and they had protectors around the corner. But when I looked at the bottom of the cells, they all had a thick kind of like epoxy or glue on them. And these came out way too easy for that glue to have been sticking them down to the bottom. So what happened? Did the glue just fail? Maybe it got warm or some moisture built up? Nope. These were actually never glued into the bottom, at least of this case. That, again, had me asking more questions than providing answers. So I wanted to take a deeper dive and see what was going on with these cells. Something really just didn't add up here. Again, we're getting less capacity than we should be, and the cells kind of look funky. So that's when I took off the BMS, did a little bit of diving, and found this barcode on the top of one of the cells. Now, this barcode tells us two things. It tells us that these are CATL cells. CATL is a pretty well-known and well-established Chinese lithium iron phosphate battery maker, and they have a good reputation in the industry. They generally make cells for EVs and mostly sell directly to vehicle manufacturers. In fact, when I was doing my research, I noted that a lot of people were saying that they only sell their grade A cells to manufacturers. So how are these grade A cells? Well, taking a further look into the barcode, you'll see that it shows a capacity on these cells of 384 watt hours. Now, 384 watt hours, when divided by the 3.2 volts nominal voltage of these cells, actually tells us that these individual cells are 120 amp hour cells, not 100 amp hour cells. Now, why would name brand 120 amp hour cells be showing almost 20% below their nominal capacity? This didn't make any sense. Now, knowing this, along with being able to see that, of course, there was glue on the bottom of the cells, but no glue in the bottom of the case, I think I can come to a pretty strong conclusion that these are not, in fact, new cells. They may have at one point in their life been considered grade A cells, but these are definitely either taken from a situation where they were used for many, many years, or these are B, C, frankly, probably D or F grade cells from a company like CATL. This company got a good deal on them, maybe bought a bunch of them at the same time and said, hey, they're close enough to 100 amp hours. People will buy them and probably not blink twice as long as we tell them that it's their setup that's causing the inefficiency and not our batteries. It's unfortunate to see this, but it's also unfortunate to kind of see behind the curtain of how these manufacturers work. Now, I gave my hypothesis before about what these batteries are going to look like on the inside and whether or not they're going to be exactly the same. Let's take a look at what it took to get the other battery completely disassembled and see what it looks like.
Don't breathe that.
Alright, so that process that I shrunk down to about 30 seconds for you guys took about half an hour for me. And this is where we're really just getting to the moment of truth. Now, again, at this point, I had already seen the inside of the battery. I could kind of look into the case, and I noticed that this one looked very similar. But in this case, the BMS was stuck to the lid of the battery where the terminals are, instead of being stuck down to the cells. So it appeared as if they may have done that to try and mitigate the issue I had with the previous version, where we saw that it was just kind of floating in there, stuck to just the top of the cells, and was very, very close as far as the positive and negative terminals. Now, fortunately, it wasn't stuck very well, so I was able to go ahead and just squeeze that apart here, and then we're able to see the top of the BMS and confirm that it is in fact exactly the same as the other unit. And I do have a data sheet for this BMS, which I'll link in the description. That'll give you some more details as well as some high quality scans of what the BMS looks like. It again doesn't appear to be a bad BMS. It really just seems that the cells in this case are what they're failing on. Now, we can't just trust the BMS based on what it looks like. We need to definitely do some testing on it as well. We've already verified that it's able to take the full 100 amp load, no problem at all, but doesn't have safety features that will keep it from charging when the temperature falls below freezing. So that's what we're looking at here. We've got it currently set up to charge at approximately 5 amps, and I'm hitting it with a very cool stream of air to verify if it does cut off, which it does. Within about 3 seconds, it cuts the charging off from the unit, and it only takes about 6 seconds of me heating the temperature sensor up for it to start taking a charge again right back where it ended. So it does have a low temperature cutoff. While there's only one temperature sensor, again, in this case, I don't think that that's really a detractor. I've seen some higher end batteries with 3, 4, 5 temperature sensors, but this should be enough to verify if it is too cold to charge.
I don't like these batteries. I wouldn't suggest buying them. I would only suggest buying new cells if you're going to be investing this kind of money in them. It does prove my point, though, that the batteries are identical between brands here, and we're not seeing Dumfume's normal quality control here because, again, they are just simply reusing someone else's battery and slapping their name on it. So, again, this company, they show up on Will Prouse's buy list, his recommended list. I have all the respect in the world for Will, but I really do think that Either he was sent a golden battery from Dumfume, which is what I'm trying to disprove with this series, or they've just simply gone downhill in quality over the years. I know that they still show up on his recommended list. I just looked at it yesterday, and he even points out their 100 amp hour cells are good as well. I really think that he should revisit that. Maybe do some of this independent testing where we're not being sent the batteries, but in fact are instead working on them ourselves. That may be, or purchasing them ourselves. That may be the route that we have to go going forward here. Yeah, and that again, that's why I'm going to show the Akmo teardown, and I'm going to go ahead and continue to do testing on it, but it is going to always have a note in the Rhino report that this is a battery that was provided by the manufacturer, because I have that same fear that I'm going to go out and recommend that you guys buy that battery, and I point down here because it's sitting right here next to me, because I got a really, really good one, but I don't know if the rest are going to be really, really good. So again, that brings me to my ask, guys. I have set up channel memberships. The only way that I can afford to keep doing this is if I do have some help from the community. So if you would like to not only be able to view these videos early and see full access to the reporting on the batteries, but if you'd like to actually help to fund the purchases of the batteries and have your voice heard when it comes to what brands we check out next, hit that join button right next to the subscribe button. We'd love to have you on board so that we can continue to do this kind of work. For now, this is all I currently have on my radar for self-purchase batteries. I have two more that I'm going to be taking apart that were provided by manufacturers. One of them asked me to take it apart. So again, makes me wonder, is it because all of their products are quality and they stand behind them, or do they just want me to show you guys what ends up being a perfect battery? I don't know. That's what I hope to be able to prove with this series. I hope it's something you guys want to see as well. If not, give it a couple more months. If nobody wants to join in, then by all means we can leave it there and move on to something else. But yeah, that's it for me, guys. This again has been the Mini-Max battery series. We've now taken apart two of them. We've got our Dumfume and our... Yeah, that's going to be it for this series. Thanks so much for watching. Feel free to subscribe if you like what you saw here, to stick around for some more videos. And if you want to help out when it comes to buying these batteries, getting them torn apart, and seeing what's inside of them, go ahead and hit that join button as well. Join in, and I'll see you all in the next one. All right, close enough. Here we go. Hey, look, I got light. In theory, I got cameras. Now it just needs some action. Problems for a different time.